Friday night. The Bison are going back to Frisco. They are looking for one for the other thumb as they go for their 10th straight national title in 10 years. They took down the Incarnate Word 35-32. Yes, it'll be 10 and 12.
10 and 12.
Is that what I said?
I think you said 10 and 10 or 10 straight.
Oh, I thought I said they were going for one for the other thumb.
Yeah, and then some weird stuff came out, but hey, 10 and 12 years, that's beyond impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And in a game where the Bison got down 16-0, and then a muff punt that gave the Bison a short field, and then a holding called and pushed them back. They ended up having to settle for a field goal, but 16-3. And then right after that, Incarnate Word drove right down the field and looked like they were going to go up 24 or 23-3, but a good play by Destin Talbert to not give up on the play and push the receiver out of bounds where the Incarnate Word receiver wasn't able to maintain possession of the ball, called it an incomplete pass. And you get it to fourth down, and the crowd of 12,570, I believe, were able to force the Incarnate Word center into snapping it early, and Lindsey Scott wasn't able to get a handle on it. And after that kind of flipped momentum for the Bison. The Bison went down and scored, and we're actually leading at halftime, 17-16. And in a game where, in the second half, the Bison jumped out again, and it kind of felt like they've seized the momentum, seized control. They were going to cruise to a easy win. To Incarnate Word's credit, they did not give up. They scored the next 2 touchdowns, and then Bison scored the next 2. They were able to get a field goal. And the defense, which they gave up 500 and some yards, but I felt the defense, they played well enough. They kept them in the game. They came up with some crucial stops. There are a couple of big fourth downs that the Bison D were able to come up with and get a stop. Lindsey Scott Jr. is a dude that there's no disputing that. That guy can play some ball. But in the end, Bison defense was able to force 4 turnovers. Cam Miller did not have his best game by any metrics. Dawson Weber actually was the leading receiver for the Bison with 2 interceptions. Cam Miller was 1 of 12 for 5 yards. But the NDSU running attack stepped up. Kobe Johnson ran for 136 yards and 3 touchdowns. Cam Miller ran for 132 yards. TK Marshall had another 66. As a team, the Bison ran for 328 yards. And in the end, as Grant likes to say, there's no such thing as style points in football. This isn't gymnastics. A win is a win. And the Bison are going back for their 10th national title. And we got a border battle.
I feel like this was a championship 10 years in the making. Like, the FCS finally got the game they want. Because, it's a rivalry game. It's the 2 best teams in the FCS. And these teams aren't going to lay down. I mean, I don't think anyone's going to blow anyone out of this game. But even if they do, there will at least be some buildup and some buzz for this game. So they might get some people to watch a little more.
Yeah,
and I feel like it's the opposite almost. So they always put them on the same side of the bracket for how many years? Like, this is the first time there's actually, I guess last year would have been the other realistic chance to play each other. But it seems like they've always tried to stay away from this game in a way, which is crazy.
Yeah, well, that, and then because NCAA wanted to save money, so they'd always put them because, oh, hey, Brookings is a short bus ride up from Fargo.
Yeah,
and it would have been last year in 21, and then the only other time that I can think of where there was a possibility was in 17 when South Dakota State went out to James Madison and James Madison won. That was an ugly game for South Dakota State. I think South Dakota State had like 9 turnovers in that game.
I remember hearing about that, Dylan. There was, was it the national semifinal, and you see the stat line and it's like, they had 9 turnovers. Like, did they turn it over on every single possession they had? That's just unheard of.
I think the quarterback had 5 interceptions.
I mean, we thought Tampa Bay fell apart yesterday, and that was only half of what South Dakota State did in that game.
Yeah. Right. But it was there were and Incarnate Word, they're spoiler alert, they were a lot better than the last time they went out and they came up to Fargo in 2014.
They scored a touchdown in this game.
They scored and multiple touchdowns.
Multiple touchdowns.
And I was saying when Bison got down 16-0, you know, there's a lot of game left. Bison have them right where they want them. I felt that they just needed to get a little bit, find some momentum. That muff punt that just, you could basically classify it as an unfortunate bounce for Incarnate Word, where just guy punt returner kind of lost his footing, slipped, it bounced off his back, and NDSU recovered it, and they score, but they get a holding, negates it, and they get pushed back. They don't really gain anything out after it, so they have to settle for a field goal, and it was like, all right, 16-3, and then Incarnate Word wasn't rattled at all. They just go down and score, like I said, and then, or I thought they had a score, but it was originally called, but after the review, he clearly bobbled it and didn't maintain possession of it, and NDSU took that, and it just seemed like there was a little more juice, a little more pep in the step on the offensive side of the ball, and went down and scored and fast, and just kind of settled in from there. The run game weren't able to stop it at all. There was a couple times I thought Incarnate Word got a little bit too aggressive, a little bit too cute. Like I said, on that possession where they thought they had a touchdown, if they kick the field goal, they still go up 19-3. And then at another crucial spot too is at the end of the game when it was a 4th and 4, and Incarnate Word was down 35-32. They could have kicked the PAT. They were in field goal range, but decided against it, and NDSU was able to get a stop. So if they kick the field goal there, it's 35-35, and who knows what happens.
Well, you know, it's kind of funny. I was after work on Friday, I went to the gym, and I was kind of following the game on my phone. And then I see it starts out 16-16 rip, and I'm like, ooh, this isn't looking good. And then I check, and then they said, NDSU, they received a muff punt or a special teams mistake from Incarnate Word at the 2. And then I'm like, oh, well, they're gonna punch us in. And then when I saw they got the field goal, I was thinking, is this almost the recipe for them to lose a home semifinal game? You're down 16 rip, you can't get a touchdown in the red zone. I just had a quick thought in the back of my head, think, maybe this is how you beat this team, or it's just not meant to be. A lot of weird games this season. But then I checked a little later at halftime, and it was 17-16, and I was like, oh, well, they're going to win this game. And, Incarnate Word, they played with their food a little bit, and then, it came back to bite them in the ass with a little heartburn, known as that NDSU running game.
Yep. And it was the credit to the NDSU defense too, because they kept them in it. There were plenty of times where it felt like the game was kind of really like where the floodgates were going to open for Incarnate Word, but NDSU was able to get some stops. There was another when the Incarnate Word was in NDSU field side of the field, and it was a 4th and short, and NDSU was able to get a stop too. It was just finding a way. That's just been the nature of this team, and they've, especially with the amount of injuries that they've had racked up and continue to rack up, this 3 weeks is going to be nice. Hopefully they'll be able to get a handful of those guys back and healthy. And said in the post game that there were a couple of the guys that were out. If they had a couple of more days to get ready for it, they probably would have played, but they weren't able to. So now with this extended time off, they'll be able to get healthy.
And the real question is this: is Frisco, Texas going to be able to have enough beer to support this title game that's coming their way? Or do they know what's coming? That's the real question.
I would think, because the first year that NDSU made it there, they actually ran out of beer. So yeah. I feel like they're fairly well prepared for what's about to happen. So hopefully they understand, and it's a Sunday on ABC at noon in primetime of sorts. So I'll be able to watch it down on a golf course in Arizona.